Welcome back and moving on to our first segment for today. And according to the discussion between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Biden, there were talks regarding the current situation in Gaza. And actually, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi stressed on the fact that there must be a solution just to stop this war, to just provide stability and security in the whole region. And we don't have any alternative that we have to reach an immediate ceasefire. Well, over the phone we have Ambassador Medhat Miligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. Well, actually, starting from the first minute, and not only from the 7th of October, but even before that time, Egypt has always been playing a major role when it comes to the Gaza Strip and Palestine in general. And we have seen talks between President el-Sisi and Biden, and President el-Sisi, as usual, stressed on the fact that there must be an immediate solution for this, because definitely it is threatening the whole region. And this is exactly what we have seen all around right now. So far, just let's focus on this call between them and the impact of this.
Well, actually, I mean, Egypt has tried ever since the beginning to find solutions and create initiatives to ease the tension in the region. The only obstacle towards achieving such a result is the absence of a political will from Israel and its ally, especially the United States. That's why the call of President Sisi with President Biden was very important, since the United States is the only power capable of forcing Israel to comply with the international law and with the various resolutions from the United Nations and the Security Council to reach an agreement. But as I said, the absence of the political will, especially from the side of Israel, and actually we can even add that it's the opposite exactly, the presence of aggressive will to continue the genocide that is taking place in Palestine is the only engine that is driving the Israeli extreme right government to continue its aggression. Simply because this is, as we said before, this is the only solution for this government to stay in power. As we all know, and it is all seen from the Israeli demonstrations against the Israeli Prime Minister, that he has lost his credibility. And talking here especially about Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, lost his credibility among the Israeli voters, and they want a new government. However, since this war is continuing, they cannot change the Prime Minister until he finishes the job as he is describing it. And the job is to totally eliminate Hamas and it's all the other actually Palestinian resistance movement. However, I think that the choice of Hamas group for Mr. Sinwar to become the new political leader actually is a decision that shows two factors and two elements that are very important. First of all, that the Palestinian people are determined to continue their struggle against the occupying force, which is Israel. And second, and I think this is very important, and we haven't spoken about this point, that Hamas actually, by choosing Mr. Sinwar, is in fact telling the world that it's ready to be a political force and not just a military one. And I think this is it's a turning point for the Palestinian resistance movement, that they are ready now to negotiate, they are ready to talk peace and to find a final solution. The choice of Mr. Sinwar, who is the head of the military fraction of Hamas, the military wing of Hamas, to become the political one, gives an impression that I think we should not miss, that they're ready to engage in political talks in order to achieve something. And I think that Israel should, if it really wants peace in the region, should seize the opportunity and start negotiating with Hamas and other Palestinian resistant movements in order to reach an agreement and to end this crisis, not just the current one, but the whole problem in the region.
Well, do you think, Mr. Ambassador, from your own point of view, is there any way to minimize this negative impact of this genocide war on the region?
Well, I think that Mr. Biden has a golden opportunity. I said this before and I am repeating it. The fact that he is not presenting his candidature to become for a second term in the Oval Office gives him an opportunity that he can, since he is not really scared about his political future, he can force Israel to comply with the international law and to abide by the rules. The United States have been isolated, and of course Israel before that, from the international scene because of the atrocities committed in the Palestinian territories and the vision of the world that it's actually Israel and not the Palestinian side who are responsible for the deterioration of the situation in the Middle East. And I think Mr. Biden, with this opportunity, he has a chance to put some real pressure on Israel to create the political will that is absent, as we said before. But in order to do so, he has to understand that continuing giving arms to Israel will never help to reach an agreement. But the opposite actually is the only solution that we can have, is by explaining to Israel that if it does not comply, then he will stop the continued flow of ammunition and of bombs, as we have seen just a couple of days ago, the MK-83 and MK-84, which are very strong bombs that the American administration have accepted to deliver to Israel. Actually, this cannot go on with what the speech has been going in the United States, that we have to stop the situation. And as I mentioned before, and as many analysts have mentioned before, that the idea of telling Israel that they should not continue waging the war, as you mentioned, in the region, cannot go along with providing Israel with more war tools to continue it. So it's either this or that. So actually the United States have to have its actions where it's worth it, because at the end of the day, telling Israel to stop and providing it with more arms will just convince Israel that just immediate talk and not serious talk about forcing Israel to comply.
So how can we push more on the international community as well to allow more humanitarian and medical aid into the more than 2 million civilians suffering in Gaza, the women, the children, the people over there who are really living, it's just a famine. They have nothing at all, not even fuel.
Well, we have no choice but what our president and his administration are doing, which is to continue our talks with all parties involved, to put more pressure on Israel to accept that the continuing war will never solve the issue. And actually, by continuing it, we are creating more recruits for Hamas, because the people who suffered that much and the people whom their families have been killed as much as we've seen until today, they will actually join Hamas or any other resistance movement in order to retaliate from the humiliation that they felt. The Israeli point of view that they can continue oppressing the Palestinian, expecting no result and no counteraction from what they are doing is a very strange idea, because actually it cannot go like that. On the opposite side, actually, we are helping Hamas to recruit more people to retaliate from this. So I think that the Egyptian way of thinking, which is to continue its talks with all players on the international scene to force Israel to understand this is the only solution there. However, since the United States continue providing Israel with weapons, this actually convinces Israel that it's okay to continue with what is going on. And that's why I think the role of the United States is more important than the Israeli acceptance, as we mentioned before. Since the United States continue to provide Israel with the arms, and there is a political will in Israel to continue the war. And not just that, and to sabotage any Egyptian effort in order to reach an agreement. Every time that President Sisi declared that we are close to reach an agreement, and then Israel and the Prime Minister of Israel sabotage the efforts in order to continue the war to secure his position as a Prime Minister of Israel, with, of course, an extreme right government that is pushing him towards a total destruction of any peace process, actually even any continuation of this government in the future, because this government has failed, and failed miserably to succeed in obtaining the consent of the Israeli voters to continue. But with the war on stage, they cannot change it until the war ends. And this is what we're hoping for.
Well, on the other side, the leader of the Lebanese Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, also confirmed the response to the assassination of Haniyeh would not just go just like this, and definitely there will be more repercussions. So how can we work again in this respect so as to stop this war instead of sliding into a dark tunnel?
Well, unfortunately, and this is part of Israeli policy, I mean, killing the negotiator cannot help to advance any negotiations in the region. And this is what Israel have done, and this is part of the sabotaging of the Egyptian efforts in order to reach an agreement. By killing Ismail Haniyeh, now you have killed one of top Palestinian negotiators, and accordingly, we have to wait some time to reach an agreement about the new negotiator. And actually, I don't know if Israel is ready to negotiate now with Mr. Senwar, who is replacing Mr. Haniyeh. That's on one side. The second thing is that the humiliation that accompanied the assassination of Hamas, I'm talking here about Iran, cannot just be unsettled and unresponded to. But how big the scope of the retaliation would be, this is something that is only in the heads of the Iranian leaders. And so far, we don't know. We heard only that even the waiting period is part of the punishment because Israel is waiting for the retaliation, and how is it going to be? And is it going to be just coming from Iran, or in parallel with the Houthis and in parallel with the Hezbollah in Lebanon? And as we have seen, there is a lot of fear that it might reach even Beirut itself, and a lot of foreigners are leaving Beirut scared of how big the scope of this war can reach. And this is exactly what we have warned from the beginning, that Israel wants to enlarge the scope of the war to enroll all the countries of the Middle East. And President Sisi and our Minister of Foreign Affairs are trying to conduct talks to raise awareness about the seriousness of enlarging the scope of the war. But at the end of the day, the response lies in Tehran, how they are going to respond. We've seen them before responding in a very calculated manner. If you remember what happened after the assassination of several Iranian officials in Damascus in the attack on their diplomatic mission in Damascus, and how the retaliation was calculated so that it wouldn't escalate the war. Will Iran do the same thing this time, or will they accept the Israeli invitation to enlarge the scope of the war and to have a full-fledged war in the region? This is what we don't know yet, but I think Iran do not take any steps that are uncalculated. That's why they are going to exactly measure the strength of the retaliation, if any. And by this, we are going to see how the region will move on in this phase of the war, where we have more than just the Palestinian involved.
Do you expect any changes in the policies or anything in the upcoming future, as long as in the beginning you were talking about Sinwar, and I'm talking in general about we have new elections for the United States, we have new leaders in different sectors. So do you expect any changes in these policies for the future?
Well, let's put it this way. When it comes to the United States, there is a huge influence of the Israeli lobby there. And actually, it's not a secret to say that they're spending millions of dollars to secure that supporters of Israel are the one elected in place. They're spending huge amount, and it's not a secret. I mean, they actually declare how much they are spending to secure their supporters to become in the Congress and in the Senate, in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. So the result is always in favor of Israel. And accordingly, even though that the American people know that Israel is committing atrocities and is violating international law, the unconditional support for Israel continues. And accordingly, I'm not expecting a real change, whether we are going to have another Democrat like the actual Vice President Kamala Harris, or a new old president like Mr. Trump. I think Mr. Trump has shown before in his first term a huge support for Israel. He is the one who moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, thus totally abolishing the right of the Palestinians to have East Jerusalem as their capital after this move from the United States, at least at this phase. But I don't think that there is a real change in the American policy. And why do I speak about the American head of state or the next head of state? Because the Americans are the only power in the world capable of convincing Israel to turn its policies into any direction. And since the United States still believe, as an administration, that Israel has the right to defend itself and has the right to actually commit these atrocities without any accountability, that's the only thing that will make Israel continue with its policies, and that's why I am not really optimistic that there will be a real change in the Israeli policies, because they will still get their arms they want, they still have the pressure they want. We've seen until the last moment that they're getting new weapons. Mr. Netanyahu was invited by the representative of the American people at the Congress for the fourth time to speak, an honor that nobody ever got, any foreign leader ever got before, even though that he's accused of committing a genocide as a state, and he personally is required to be investigated from the International Criminal Court. Nevertheless, he was invited to the Congress, and the United States, although it should have distanced itself from these unlawful actions and unlawful persons, but nevertheless, actually, the United States have invited them to prove once again that it's supporting Israel, even if Israel is committing the worst crimes possible. So
Right.
you are asking if there is a hope. Under these conditions, I don't see a real hope coming from Israel because it has and it's enjoying the support of the United States endlessly.
Right. Ambassador Medhat Miligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for joining us. And moving on to a quick break, then we'll be back.
Gustav Klemt's portrait of Miss Lizer, a painting